What's up everyone, Mr. NoobTube Gamer. Today we're playing Fallout 76 in 2022. It's been almost 4 years since the game first came out in 2018, and when it first came out, a lot of people really were not a big fan of Fallout 76. There were a lot of bugs, a lot of game-breaking issues, more so than most Bethesda games, because Bethesda is known for having a lot of issues, but 76 was really bad due to being an online-only game, so for a while the servers were so messed up. And there also wasn't a whole lot of content at launch. You had no human NPCs, which was a really bad thing. All the missions were just involved collecting holotapes and collecting stuff, and all the bodies were already dead by the time you got where you had to go. And it just felt lifeless. It was a lifeless game for a very long time. But over time, we got updates, we got new content, new factions, new characters, people that you can actually talk to in the game, which was huge. It definitely made the game feel more alive and more like a Fallout game. I'd say the Wastelanders update in early 2020 was really the update that started to revitalize the game and breathe new life into it and get a lot of more people invested into Fallout 76. So I would say if you're someone that played Fallout 76 back when it first came out and felt like it didn't have enough content, there really was nothing in the game that really did anything for you, I think if you go back now, you might think a little bit differently about the game. And you might actually end up liking it, because that's what happened with a lot of other people. But with me personally, I still don't like this game, and I know that's going to earn me a lot of dislikes, which I guess doesn't matter anymore because you can't see dislikes anymore, but I know a lot of Fallout 76 fans are clicking on this video, and the fact that I'm going to say a lot of negative stuff about this game, a lot of people are not going to appreciate that, but that's okay. This is my channel, I'm going to share my opinion about the game, and you can feel free to take it or leave it. But I'm coming at you from the perspective of a longtime Fallout fan. I never played the original games, but I did play Fallout 3, I played New Vegas, I played Fallout 4, and I beat all of them multiple times. I easily have thousands of hours logged into each of those games, respectively. So I think with Fallout, I know what I'm talking about here, and I personally think that Fallout 76 is not a good Fallout game. Even 4 years later, even after all the updates and improvements they've made, it just still doesn't feel like Fallout to me. And I think the whole online-only experience actually makes the game worse, and it's just such a fundamentally flawed concept to have a game that's online only with the same engine that was used in Fallout 4, an engine that's clearly not designed for online multiplayer at all. You know, the reason why VATS is a mechanic in the Fallout series in the first place is because gunplay has never been a strong thing about Fallout. I mean, obviously there are guns, and you shoot people, and that's the main gameplay, but the gunplay is just not nearly as smooth as an actual online game, like, I don't know, a Call of Duty or a Battlefield. You can say what you want about those games. Even Vanguard in 2042, those games are pretty shitty, but the gunplay, the core gunplay, is leagues beyond what Fallout 76 and Fallout 4 could do. And at least with Fallout 4, I had a bunch of mods I could play with to kind of make things a little bit better, to make the gameplay a little bit smoother. And it was also a single-player only game. It wasn't online, so I could use VATS, it would freeze the game, and it would make it a little bit better. But obviously, since this is an online game, VATS doesn't pause the game. It's kind of like an aimbot, I guess you could say. But it just doesn't work as well as VATS in Fallout 4 and the other games. And when you're in that online setting, you tend to notice how awful the gunplay truly was in Fallout 4. Because Fallout 76 is pretty much Fallout 4 with online multiplayer and a new map. Like, the core gameplay is identical. Which would be okay if it was another single-player game, but for an online game, it just doesn't work. I'm sorry, Todd Howard, it does not work. With this gunplay, PvP is an absolute joke, and even PvE. The engine just wasn't made for online play in mind, but Bethesda couldn't help it. They saw money, they're like, oh, an online Fallout game, we can make a lot of money with it, even if conceptually it's just a terrible idea. And even like the settlement building, because building the camp is also a huge feature in 76, is kind of derived from the settlements in Fallout 4. I'm sorry, I have a lot more fun building giant cities by myself than a little tiny little base. Like, it's just, it doesn't hit the same. I'm definitely not going to put real money with the Atom Shop so I can have more building materials for my base when I can just download mods in Fallout 4 and the building experience is so much better and so much less limited. If you compare Fallout 4 directly to Fallout 76, Fallout 4 destroys 76 in every single category. And it's not even close. Even, you know, they added the story, they added in NPCs and characters and factions and all that. The voice acting is very subpar, the writing is terrible, even compared to Fallout 4, which doesn't have the best writing, Fallout 4 is way better than what we have in 76. As far as the writing not being too great, I think that has a lot to do with the setting, it being a prequel, so they're very limited by what they can do. Like, your choices are not going to have that much of an effect because, it takes place 200 years before Fallout 4, so you already have that established lore that they kind of have to work around, which was a problem they also had with ESO, taking place hundreds of years, 1,000 years, I think, before Skyrim. They probably would have been better off taking place in a different part of the country, but also being around the same time as Fallout 4, so they're not limited by lore that much, I think that would have been a lot better. Because in Fallout 76, whether we're talking about the Wastelanders or the Brotherhood of Steel update, all those new characters they brought into the Brotherhood of Steel, I don't care about a single one of the characters in Fallout 76 at all, but there were a lot of characters in Fallout 4 that I was heavily invested in. Some that I hated, like Preston, but there were a lot of other ones like Piper and Kate that I was really interested in, even non-companion characters like Father and Elder Maxon and all these other characters. Like, there's just no comparison, and the performance is just so terrible. How does a game that runs on the same exact engine as Fallout 4 somehow run worse? The performance is still terrible. The optimization is still dog shit 4 years later. I'm running this on a 2060 Super, and I was barely chugging along at medium settings at 1440p. I can run it at high at 1080, but how does that happen? Like, I can max out Fallout 4 with the same GPU and the same setup on my PC. I can max the game out at 1440p and run at 144 frames. So how am I getting that experience in Fallout 4, but in 76, I can barely run the game at high settings in 1080p, not even 1440. So the game looking like shit and running like shit in comparison to the game that came out 3 years before just isn't a good thing and definitely ruins the experience. Of course it could be fun with friends, but every game that you can think of is more fun with friends. Like, it's what you make of it with everything in life, but doesn't mean that it's actually worth your time and it's actually worth grinding for and putting real money into the fucking shit. The game already costs whatever, and then you have the microtransactions on top of it. I personally don't think it's worth it. Even the most die-hard Fallout fan shouldn't bother with this game, I don't think. Or even if you're a fan of online games in general, there are so many better options. Even games that I'm not a huge fan of, like Destiny and Ghost Recon Breakpoint, those games will still give you a lot more than Fallout 76 ever will, even if they keep updating it over time. I know they're adding the pit as a new map and a new DLC or whatever you want to call it. The game is just so fundamentally flawed and shouldn't exist. It should never have existed. And 4 years later, my opinion of the game hasn't changed all that much. So I'll wait until 2035 or whatever for Fallout 5 to come out, because this game just doesn't scratch that Fallout itch. Not at all. It's a bad Fallout. It's a terrible online experience. There's really no redeeming factors with Fallout 76 at all. But there are obviously a lot of people that feel differently than I do. So, feel free to check it out on Game Pass because it's free, if you're a Game Pass subscriber. So you don't have anything to lose. And there's a good community. There's a good player base out there. It's not like the game is dead. So if you need people to play with, you'll definitely find people. But like I said, I just can't recommend this game to anybody. But, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about Fallout 76. Do you love it? Do you hate it? How do you feel about 76? And has your opinion changed over time? For me, it hasn't, but I know for a lot of people it has. So I'm interested to see what all you guys have to say about the game. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.